Welcome to this program. Strand for today: forces and movement. Substrand: frictional force. Our objectives. So, objectives: by the end of the lesson, learners should be able to I. Define friction. II. State at least 4 types of friction. III. Enumerate 2 factors affecting friction. IV. Outline at least 2 advantages and disadvantages of friction. So at the end of the lesson, these objectives should be achieved. Introduction. Now, let us take a look at these pictures. Picture 1 depicts a person walking. Another picture, that is picture 2, depicts someone robbing the palm. And then picture 3, a person on a wheel being pushed. So this is your question. Why is it that in picture 1, the person is able to walk? Picture 2, the person is able to rob the palms. And then picture 3, the person is able to be pushed on the wheel. Great. It is all because of friction. It is all because of friction. So the question is, what is friction? What is friction? Now, friction is the force resisting the relative motion of solid surface, fluid layers, and materials elements sliding against each other. I'm taking it again. Friction is the force resisting the relative motion of solid surface, fluid layers, and materials elements sliding against each other. Now, let's look at the types of friction. Types of friction. Can you name them? Great. So we have static friction, fluid friction, rolling friction, sliding friction, and the rest. But here we are going to look at only 4. Next time we shall look at the rest. Now let us look at this diagram. This is a rope. This is a rope being tied on the object, and the force being applied to the rope. So the person is surely pushing the rope. So let us assume this is the person pushing the rope, pushing the object with the help of the rope. Great. So this is the floor. This place is the floor. And then the object is over here. So the object and the ground is very close, and it is being dragged. So this kind of force is known as static friction. So static friction is occurring over here. there is a static friction occurring between the ground and the object. So what is static friction? Static friction acts on objects when they are resting on a surface. So the example is depicting this object is resting on a surface. And where is the surface? That is the brown color, the earth over here. So it is a static friction. Whenever you put something on the ground and you are pushing, you are pulling it from the ground, it is having a static friction in between. Great. An example is what I have said. If you are dragging an object on the ground, so when you are dragging an object on the ground, the kind of friction that is occurring is static friction. Great. Now let's take a look at the second diagram or the second illustration. Here we have the ground and then there is an object close just in a diagonal way to the ground, as it has been indicated over here, and an object is right on the sloping item. So this kind of friction is known as sliding friction. You standing on a high mountain, then you try to come down. You will not roll, but you try to do what? To slide. In your various schools, you normally slide with your shoes. Great. So this is known as sliding friction. So what is sliding friction? Sliding friction is a friction that occurs on objects when they are sliding over a surface. So this object is sliding over a surface. This is the surface. So you can see this is the surface and it is sliding on it. Great. Examples: bicycle brakes. Sometimes when you are riding a bicycle and you apply the brake, it slides. It is not only bicycle brakes, but when car also applies an instant brake, it slides on the road. Skinning your knee, and you have been doing it in school. You kneel down to skin towards the slopey area, and then walking. When you are walking, it is also in the form of sliding friction. And then writing. When you are writing, you move from one place to another. So these are some of the examples of sliding friction. How does sliding friction help you ride a bike? This is a question. How does sliding friction help you ride a bike? And the answer is there is sliding friction between the brake pads and rims each time you use your bike's brakes. So between the bicycle pad, the brake pad, and then the rim, there is a friction over there. So as I said, when there is an instant brake, it slides. This friction slows the rolling over a surface. So it slows the rolling over a surface. Now, let's take a look at another one. This is an object, a heavy object which cannot be pushed. Heavy object which cannot be pushed. So how can they push it? This time they are not putting the object is not on the ground, but rather it has been put on some bearings, brown object, which will aid them to move very fast. So this is the heavy object, and then the rolling surface, and this is the hand pushing the object. It is pulling it. So there are ball bearings here pulling it, and this kind of friction is known as rolling friction. Rolling friction. So rolling friction is friction that acts on objects when they are rolling over a surface. Rolling friction is much weaker than sliding friction or surface. Examples: using four-wheeler, bicycle, roller skates, scooters, and a kicked ball. So when you kick a ball, it is also having a rolling friction, and it is common. You have seen it before. Now let's look at the next type of friction. Here there is an object in motion, and the blue color over here depicts water, oil, or air. And this kind of friction is known as fluid friction. So when a boat or a ship is on water, it is having a fluid friction. When an aeroplane is airborne, it is also having a fluid friction. So fluid friction is friction that acts on objects that are moving through a fluid. And a fluid is a substance that can flow and take the shape of its container. Examples: swimming. So when you are swimming, you are applying fluid friction. Ship or boat on water, an airplane in the air, etc. So these are some of the examples of fluid friction. Factors affecting friction. We have the first one to be friction depends on the nature of the surface in contact. This means the rougher the surface, the greater is the friction. The next one. Friction is proportional to the force that friction is proportional to the force pressing the surface together. That is, in the case of horizontal movement, the pressing force is the weight that is pushing heavy versus light objects. Then the third one, friction is dependent on the area of contact. So these are the factors that affect friction. Now let's look at it again. So the diagram is over here: pushing force and then motion. Someone is pushing this object from the back, and then another person too is pushing the object in front. Now the fourth factor is the angle and position of the object affects the amount of friction. If an object is placed flat against an object, the frictional force will be equal to the weight of object. Advantages of friction. 1. Due to friction, the objects can be placed at position and shape. 2. Frictional force helps to move the object by friction. It helps in running, walking, and the rest. Frictional force helps to move the object with high speed. So these are some of the advantages of friction. It helps us to move very fast. It helps us to run. It helps us to walk. And then again, due to friction, we can position things at where they